A shout of relief after the exit polls. The Green Left Labour list in the Netherlands is projected to send 8 MEPs to Brussels. Geert Wilders' Party for Freedom and Democracy is expected to win 7 seats.
Pro-European parties in the Netherlands did very well in this election, which sends a clear signal to the rest of Europe. There is no necessity to work with the radical right. The assumption that the radical right would sweep this election is not materialized in the Netherlands.
Though they campaign together, these two parties belong to different European families. Labour is part of the Socialists and Democrats, and the Green Left is part of the Greens. Geert Wilders did not celebrate. During the party's single campaign event, Wilders was mobbed by supporters and the press.
The next coming days are crucial to the future of Europe. Will it be with more open borders and immigration, or will it be a lot tougher and with more, as I said, not an expansion of the European Union, but returning to the capitals of the legislative powers? And this is something that we are aiming for.
The Radical Right Party had always advocated for an exit, but changed course this year. Wilders now says he wants to change the European Union from within and hopes to join the Identity and Democracy group. Despite the campaign having little visibility in both the streets and the media, turnout was 47%, the highest since 1989. Voters were mostly concerned about migration, healthcare and the economy. The Netherlands will send 31 MEPs to Brussels. The final result will only be known on Sunday evening.
French President Emmanuel Macron has said France will provide Ukraine with its Mirage combat aircraft to help the country's defense against Russia's military offensive. He spoke after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky joined world leaders in France to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion.
Demain, nous allons lancer une nouvelle coopération et annoncer la cession de Mirage 2000-5, qui sont des avions de combat français, qui permettront à l'Ukraine de protéger son sol, son espace aérien. Et donc, dès demain, nous allons lancer un programme de formation des pilotes et puis de cession de ces avions qui permettra d'ici à la fin de l'année. Alors,
Macron also said France will start training Ukrainian pilots as he reiterated that Ukraine should be allowed to use Western-provided weapons to strike Russian military targets. The Netherlands and Denmark promised last year to give F-16 warplanes to Ukraine, and the United States is training Ukrainian pilots at a base in Arizona. The promise of French aircraft will likely be welcomed in Kyiv. Ukraine is currently fighting to hold back a renewed Russian push in eastern areas, including the border regions of Kharkiv and Donetsk. Russian troops are seeking to exploit Kyiv's shortages of ammunition and soldiers along the front line. Zelensky is due to meet French officials in Paris on Friday.
Far-right parties need to be ready to overcome their divisions if they want to make an impact in the next EU Parliament. Germany's AfD is searching for a new political family after its expulsion from Identity and Democracy, and it might decide to form its own one.
The number of far-right parties are on a path of radicalization, which means that I don't think all of them will be put together after the elections. We'd rather see not one, but 3 instead of 2 political groups. That's also the reason why Marine Le Pen recently made clear that she wanted to have a clear distance vis-à-vis the AfD.
If projections are confirmed and AfD gets 15 seats in the European Parliament, it would then need 23 additional MEPs from at least 7 member states to form its own parliamentary group. Talks among parties have already started. According to the Euronews poll center, Bulgaria's Revival is one of the parties that reached out to AfD about a potential alliance. There's also movement concerning other right-wing MEP candidates from Poland, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Hungary and Slovakia. The common ground among them seems to be a softer approach towards Russia, as Ukraine is set to remain a top issue in the new legislature.
Chancellor Olaf Scholz has vowed Germany will start deporting criminals from Afghanistan and Syria again after a knife attack by an Afghan immigrant left 4 wounded and 1 dead in Mannheim last week. The 25-year-old attacker had come to Germany in 2014 as an asylum seeker. Addressing Germany's parliament, Scholz promised that deportation rules for all who commit or support criminal or terrorist acts would be tightened.
Deshalb werden wir unsere Ausweisungsregelung so verschärfen, dass auch aus der Billigung terroristischer Straftaten ein schwerwiegendes Ausweisungsinteresse folgt. Wer Terrorismus verherrlicht, wendet sich gegen alle unsere Werte und gehört auch abgeschoben.
Germany does not currently deport convicted asylum seekers to Afghanistan or Syria, but the Chancellor said his government was working on a solution to enable deportation to Afghanistan's neighbouring countries. Migration has been one of the major topics that far-right and mainstream parties have been exploiting in order to gain votes in the European elections. Scholz and his Social Democrats, as well as other mainstream parties, have been trying to depict themselves as tough on migration and radical Islam in hopes that voters won't turn to the far-right Alternative for Germany to tackle these issues.
British paratroopers had their passports checked by French customs officers as soon as they landed on Normandy soil for D-Day celebrations. The troops said they had never experienced such checks before. Around 300 units from the UK, Belgium and the US parachuted into a D-Day drop zone to recreate the airborne operation that took place 80 years ago. The Allied invasion, which began on the 6th of June 1944, opened a new hole in Hitler's defenses, accelerating the final defeat of Nazi Germany.
SpaceX has completed its first full test flight of the Starship rocket. It was the 4th launch of the world's biggest and most powerful rocket that NASA is banking on taking humans to Mars. The spacecraft reached an altitude of nearly 211 kilometers and traveled at more than 26,000 kilometers per hour before beginning its descent. Parts of the Starship broke away during re-entry, but it reached its targeted splashdown site in the Indian Ocean.
Congratulations to the Spacex team!
Muslims in Bosnia are departing for Saudi Arabia to take part in one of the biggest religious gatherings on earth. More than 2,200 Bosnians will join the 1.5 million worshippers from around the world making their way to Mecca for the annual Hajj pilgrimage, which starts next Friday. It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam religious practices, which include fasting during Ramadan and 5 prayers each day. Every Muslim is obliged to attend Hajj once in their lifetime if they're physically and financially able to do so. Voters in Croatia head to the polls on Sunday and will choose from 300 candidates for their 12 seats in the European Parliament. But even with modest wishes, some voters are unsure the EU Parliament can meet their demands.
Zanima me onaj koji će najviše nešto napraviti da Hrvatska se recimo izjednači sa u nekim proizvodima i cijenama sa Europom.
Mislim da se europska politika sve više i više ima utjecaj na život građana i da je jako važno da izaberemo upravo onu opciju za koju mislimo da može određene stvari pomaknuti.
Zapravo se stvari zbivaju iza scene, tako da mi zapravo ne znamo točno u kojoj mjeri Europarlament utiče na komisiju, a komisija je ta koja utiče na naše živote.
But it's not just a knowledge of the workings of the European Union that drives voters to the polls.
Oni koji izlaze na europske izbore izlaze ili zato što je to stranačka naredba, pa onda se zapravo moraju pojaviti da bi stranka dobro prošla, tu prije svega mislim na HDZ, ili izlaze ovi koji razumiju ulogu Europskog parlamenta pa onda žele da se njihov glas čuje, odnosno da imaju zastupnika koji zastupa njihove vrijednosti u Europskom parlamentu.
In 2019, Croatia came bottom of the turnout table with just 29% of the electorate voting, and numbers are expected to be low this Sunday too.
Prediction of the result of Sunday election in Croatia show that they will be pretty much the same as they were 5 years ago.
The centre-right Croatian Democratic Union formed a government with the right-wing Homeland Movement Party in May. Croatia, like many countries in Europe, has tilted to the right, but analysts say right-wing parties won't enter the EU Parliament.
Na europskim izborima Hrvatska vrlo vjerojatno neće otići u desno, dobit će zastupnika potencijalno koji ulazi u tu kategoriju desnice, ali to će biti jedan, maksimalno dva, tako da Hrvatska zadržava nekakav srednjostrujaški kurs što se tiče europskih izbora.
Voting in Croatia starts on Sunday at 7 a.m. local time and polls close later that evening. The first preliminary results based on exit polls are expected to be released around 7 p.m.
Euronews. The news